Top 5 reasons why the moon landing might have been fake. Have you ever heard the conspiracy theory that the moon landing was faked? Despite the fact that this theory has been debunked countless times, it continues to gain traction and is shared widely online. In this blog post, we will take a closer look at some of the most popular arguments used to support the claim that the moon landing was staged. We will examine each argument closely to determine whether there is any truth to the claims that the 1969 Apollo 11 mission was fake. Read on to learn more about the top 5 reasons why some people believe that the moon landing was faked. 1. The American flag was waving. One of the most well-known pieces of evidence that some people use to support the idea that the moon landing was fake is the fact that an American flag appeared to be waving in one of the photos taken during the mission. The waving flag has caused a lot of controversy over the years, with some claiming it as proof of a faked mission, and others pointing out that the flag could have been set up in a way that would cause it to move in the wind. So what really happened? Is there any scientific explanation for why the flag appears to be waving? 2. The moon's surface is too smooth. The moon's surface is one of the main arguments used to suggest the moon landing was fake. The moon's surface appears to be extremely smooth, with no rocks or craters. While it is true that the moon has very few large rocks or craters, this does not necessarily mean the moon landing was fake. It is important to note that the Apollo missions only visited a small portion of the moon, less than 2% of its total surface area. This means that the small sample size might be responsible for the lack of large rocks and craters seen on the surface. Additionally, the moon's terrain was created by millions of years of meteor impacts, which are more likely to have destroyed large rocks and left behind finer soil particles. In conclusion, the fact that the moon appears to be too smooth should not be taken as evidence that the moon landing was fake. Instead, it is important to consider the larger context of the moon's history and topography. 3. There are no stars in any of the photos. The iconic photos from the moon landing show a barren, rocky surface with no sign of life, and not one star in the sky. How is this possible? While it's certainly possible that the moon's surface was free of stars at the time of the landing, some have speculated that this was done to make the photo look more dramatic. This lack of stars has raised many questions about the authenticity of the moon landing. Could this be an indication that the mission was faked? It's impossible to say for sure. After all, the camera used on the moon landing could only capture a limited amount of stars, so perhaps none were present in the photos. But it's also possible that the images were manipulated in some way to remove any evidence of stars. Whatever the truth may be, this absence of stars has been a major source of debate among conspiracy theorists. For many, it's enough to cast doubt on the authenticity of the mission. 4. The shadows in the photos are inconsistent. One of the most controversial arguments against the veracity of the 1969 moon landing is the discrepancy in the shadows that appear in photos taken by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Many people have argued that the shadows in some of the pictures appear to be inconsistent with one another, leading some to question whether or not they were actually taken on the surface of the moon. For example, some of the photos show 2 astronauts standing in a shadow, while their shadows are clearly visible in other photos. If these photos were taken on the moon, then it should not have been possible for them to have shadows due to the single light source, the sun. This inconsistency has caused some to question the authenticity of the moon landing. Furthermore, an analysis of the photos conducted by the U.S. Geological Survey revealed that the angle of the shadows did not match the angle of the sun. This suggests that more than one light source was used to create the shadows in the photos, which would have been impossible if they were taken on the moon. Ultimately, many have argued that these inconsistencies in the shadows are too great to ignore and suggest that the moon landing might have been faked. While this is still a matter of debate, it's important to consider all possibilities when evaluating this historical event. 5. Buzz Aldrin's reflection is missing in a photo. One of the most commonly cited pieces of evidence for this theory is a photo taken during the mission which shows a reflection of Armstrong and Aldrin, but not of Aldrin himself. The photo in question is of Armstrong and Aldrin standing side by side on the moon. Armstrong's reflection can be seen in Aldrin's helmet, but there is no reflection of Aldrin himself. This has led some to suggest that it was impossible for him to have been in the photo at all, suggesting that the mission was faked and that Aldrin was not actually present. While this is an interesting piece of evidence, it is far from conclusive proof that the mission was faked. It is possible that the reflection was simply not visible due to the angle at which the photo was taken, or that it was just overlooked during the editing process.